Good morning. This is Avraham Shira for Nahar Shalom Chabura Tov. I hope everyone had a good Shabbat, good Sof Shavua, as they call it here in Israel, a weekend. It's interesting, in English we call it the weekend, but in Judaism it's really the beginning of the week. It's an interesting distinction, I think. Nonetheless, today we're going to talk about something that we all face when we don't want to pray. And when we don't want to pray, there's reasons, spiritual, physical, that make it very hard to speak to God. It makes it hard to speak to anybody. We don't want to speak to ourselves. We don't want to speak to our friends, our families, and even more so, we don't want to speak to God, which is essentially what prayer is. Now, in this Torah that we've been learning in Torah Chet of Tinyana, we've been dealing with the idea that prayer itself is the supplication, the begging for mercy. And it's a lot of ground we've already covered about this powerful prayer that is necessary for a person to get that voice, that true voice of prayer, and that true voice of prayer that actually gives us a voice that helps correct ourselves and others, the voice that we can use to bring the water of mercy. It's not easy work. This is tough work, folks. This is where we get separated between the men and the boys, the ladies and the girls. I don't know, whatever cliche you want, but this is the hard work, because there's a place along the way where the prayer gets stuck. The Rebbe is going to define for us that place where the prayer gets stuck is the back of the throat. He brings a verse to support it. And it's really where our power is being kidnapped. Literally, our spiritual power to address God, to address the world, to address ourselves. It's getting swallowed up, where we feel closed inside, and we have mochin de katnut, the constricted consciousness. And that constricted consciousness is a very dangerous place, because everything looks bad. Everything looks problematic, irritating, difficult. And, just the word everything should tell us it's not coming from the right place, because it's not really true. But it feels true when you're in it. And so we have to work very hard to get out of it. Because if we don't, the problem with the small-mindedness is that it leads to worse things. Worst things along the way, of course, are what we call sins, disconnection, going against our own inner truth, violating our conscience. And conscience is a very human thing. It's really what gives us a connection to God. And in Hebrew, conscience is matzpun. The word matzpun is from the lashon, the root word of matzpen, which is a compass. So your conscience really is your compass. And it's like, imagine you're lost in the desert and suddenly your compass doesn't work. And even worse, you don't care if it doesn't work. I don't care what way I go. I'm just in a bad mood, as it's usually called. Well, that bad mood is the constricted consciousness that leads to all kinds of problems. Anyways, so we're going to start in the second paragraph, near the bottom of the column. The tefillah hu bichinat moach miuchad. We learned also last time that the moach has three chambers. Of course, chokhmah, bina, and dat. And then there's the pnimiut dat, which is really what we would call in psychological language the subconscious. And those three mental powers have different functions, of course, and one of them is guiding or giving us power to pray. So you see, that's also why when I don't want to pray, my brain feels cut off, disconnected from something that I don't like being disconnected from. Okay. Ki ikar tefilahu rachamim v'tachanunim. We've learned this pasuk many times from the Rebbe that the essential prayer is mercy and supplication. But when our mind, our dot, the middle column, which is really where prayer is emanating, when there's a damage to that, chas v'shalom, then a person gets that wonderful thing we talked about last time. Also, I'm being sarcastic, of course, this desire for things that we shouldn't want, especially in the realm of lust. Now, lust, there's many types of lust, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. And when there's this damage to our mercy and our knowledge, our perception, it's like your whole lens changes. And it's not a pleasant place to be. Then it's impossible to pray with mercy and supplication. We're not able to pray properly. Then when the prayer is in the aspect of judgment and constriction, well, then the other side actually swallows the prayer. I mean, like people will say, well, why aren't my prayers answered? Well, it's probably because they don't have any power to break through the psychic firmaments that separate us from the infinite. And there are a lot of those. And rather, the prayer is swallowed by the other side. And the Sitra Achra swallows the prayer, and then Ikar, of course, the other side is always looking to put things in judgment, in negativity, and constriction, and that's his job. Shem mochin de katnut, and then we call this the constricted consciousness, and it's just an aspect of judgment or Elohim, God. When he sits in that chair of judgment, you don't want to be in the courtroom, right? You don't want to be around there, and sometimes that courtroom is in your mind. And he bolautam, and he takes away our prayer. And this is why Shabbos is even more. This is why Shabbos is so important, because those prayers that don't rise up during the week because of this very thing, this aspect of katnut, small-mindedness, on Shabbos, those small-minded prayers get elevated with everything else, because the whole creation is elevated on Shabbos. Friday evening, that's why oftentimes the prayer on Friday night is so strong. It's because you're getting help from all those prayers that didn't go up during the week. It's important to recognize that. So we need to remember that every Erev Shabbat, Friday evening, because we want to utilize that special time. You know, when the elevator comes, you jump on the elevator, right? You don't wait for the next one, the next Shabbos. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Now, when our prayer is in this aspect of din, and we don't want to pray, and our mind is closed, and everything looks pretty rotten, we need a Baal Koach, a master of power. Power gadol, he says, and that can pray in that level. Now, not everybody has that level, and some people work for it, and some people get it, and some people need to be attached to others who have it. And Pinchas was an aspect of this, as he stood up and he prayed. But he doesn't use the normal word yitpalel. The Chumash uses the word yifalel. It lacks the reflexive grammar structure of a verb. Now, just briefly, grammar in Hebrew, when you say yitpalel, halech, v'litraot, all those forms where there's that prefix, as it's called, of lehit, It means it's reflexive. That means it's something that somebody's doing to themselves. Now, if it's in the world, I can do something to others. I can do something to the side of the mountain. If I have a pick and an axe or a tractor, I can do something out to something else. But when I do something to myself, it takes on the reflexive verb. So vayitpalel means I'm praying with myself, to myself. Not to myself in the sense I'm praying to God, but I'm using myself to pray to Shem. Okay. But without that reflexive structure of a yifalel, it's implying, the Rebbe says, this power of extra koach. Okay, he's going to explain more, and we'll understand more. The Darshu Razal, our sages taught, Shasa plilot im kono, that he did plilot is lashon wonders. He did wonders with God, but it's also the lashon of plili, which means criminal. Now, how could that be? Pinchas was a great tzaddik. He was a grandson of Aaron a Kohen. We don't impute upon him that he did crimes, but rather he took this power of a crime, and he turned it into prayer. Now, this is not easy, but this is the work, folks, is when I've done something wrong and I turn it into prayer. That takes power. Because, it's one thing to say, oh, Hashem, I'm sorry I did that. And that's good. That is a level. That's fine. But to turn it around completely, because that sin took away my power. If I get angry, I lose my power. Where? In the anger itself. It's like you poke a hole in the balloon. The balloon's going to go empty. That's what it's like. You lose your power. And so we want to get that power back, because if we don't get it back, guess where the power goes? We just learned, to the other side. So you have to pray at this level where I'm taking that negative event and I'm using that power, I'm getting it back, and I'm turning it back into prayer. So I'm amping up the volume, if you will. I'm dropping a little more current in the wire. And it takes Baal Koach Gadol, he says. And it says, Como Pinchas Baal, when he prayed about Zimri. Of course, Zimri was the head of the tribe of Shimon. He wasn't a little guy. He wasn't some nobody. He was the head of the tribe of Shimon, was one of the most powerful tribes. And, he's the leader of 50,000 people. Like the mayor of a city, let's say. And he stood up to pray, and he did these plilot with Hashem, that he turned it around with din. He had zealousness, and kina is also the lashon of jealousy, but it's not jealousy like I'm jealous of the guy because he did what he did, nor it's rather I'm jealous for God. How could you do that, Zimri? How could you stand up with this woman in front of everybody and do what you did? And in other words, it's a language of when you're zealous and you're upset with somebody for what they did. It's a form of anger, and it could turn holy or unholy very fast. And that's really where we need God's help. I remember once, a few years ago, it was late at night, and I was learning in a Kolel Chatzot, where we learn all night, and that's usually a time when things are very sweet and pleasant. But I went outside to get some fresh air, and there was a poster of these Palestinian terrorists shooting at Jews. They were snipers. I don't know what happened, but I got so enraged by this poster, and I could feel the anger standing at that border between holy anger and unholy anger. Where, it was good that nobody else was walking by at the time. Especially if he was Palestinian. You just can't hold certain things inside. So God says, don't hold it inside. Turn it into prayer. Powerful prayer, screaming prayer, angry prayer. But not at God, but rather at humanity, at ourselves. And I'm part of humanity, so I'm part of that. That we've reached that level where these terrorists are taking pot shots at our soldiers and our children. So, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. That this evil incites anger in us. And that can be a very, very good thing if we know how to channel it. But if we don't, it can destroy us. And it can make us stupid too. Because anger, anybody who becomes angry with the unholy anger, his wisdom leaves him. So the first thing, of course, we have to get to that level where we could just put on some brakes and look at the anger. Why am I angry here? Is it about me? Is it about Palestinian terrorists? Is it about my sense of helplessness? And if I feel helpless, that means something's fallen in my connection with God as well. Because ultimately, what am I? I am, of course, helpless. Every cell in my body is operating on its own without me helping. The fact that there's a soul in my brain and in my heart. What did I do? I didn't do anything. I just woke up. And there's a soul there inside my head telling me, get up, wash your hands, take a shower. We are helpless because it's all being done for us. So we have to catch that moment of helplessness and say, wait a minute, I am helpless, but I'm not alone. I have the Creator at my back. And all he says is, talk to me. You have bad feelings? Let me know about it. Send it back. I can deal with it. God can deal with terrorists very well. Okay. This is also what happens when you watch the news. Okay. But unfortunately, if we don't catch it, it does a lot of damage. Now, the Rebbe goes on to tell us, V'ya'amod Pinchas v'falel, and Pinchas stood up to pray, ki kasheyesh pagam ta'avat niut, because when a person, there's a pagam, right? Chas v'shalom, sha'azet tefila v'chinat din, v'sitra chara, bolatota. Well, when a person is having those kind of desires, his prayer is definitely cut off. It's definitely being swallowed by the other side. And then you need a big power, a master of power. That will pray in the power of din. Now, if you're not able to pray that level, which nobody is really in the beginning unless you're so desperate, we need to pray with other people who have that power. That's why it's so important to go to the minyan, especially minyan with people who are really praying, screaming. Not screaming from a place of superficiality, my friends. Not, oh, this kind of hollow prayer. It's not coming from the heart. It's prayer that's coming from your guts. And if you don't hear it, then you don't have it. Sorry. That's the way we measure ourselves. But once you have prayed from your guts, you can tell what real prayer is. Okay. Like at the time when Zimri did what he did. And then Pinchas had to get up and pray with that din because there was this atmosphere in the air because of Maaseh Zimri. Well, when you pray this level of really the gut-busting prayer, the Sitra Achra it wants to vomit out your prayer. He cannot hold on to the holiness. He cannot keep it from going back to God. Because he's got to upload. He has to unload all that kedusha that he swallowed from us. So this all sounds very high and mystical, but it's really rather simple. You have power of holiness and you have power of unholiness, and they're fighting each other inside all of us, inside us. And when we're on the right side, We have expanded consciousness. We have the proper headset on creation, and we love life, and we want to do good naturally. That's when you're in the side of Kedusha. But when everything looks bad and sour, then that's the other side. And so when you do something from the other side, it's like the other, he's taking the power. It's going to the other side, the wrong bank account. But when you cry out in prayer at this level, guess what? The other side can't hold on to it. He's going to vomit it up, literally. And I know that's not a pleasant metaphor, but, well, it's that reality that we have to face. Right? He's always swallowing up those swallowing the holiness in the prayer, and he's gonna has to give it up. So what happens? This is important. If you're interested in this type of prayer, which I hope all of you are, because we get there sometimes. It's not every day. But generally it's when things are not looking good. And he tells us also when the wrong desires are taking over. The Sitra Achara stands right back here at the back of the neck. That's why the back of the neck is called the Achor in Kabbalah. Achara, the other side, right? So the back of the neck, of course, is the Oref. And what are the letters? The Arizal tells us the letters Oref spell out Pero, right? That nice king down in Egypt, just over the sea over there. Well, he's standing back here in the back of the neck trying to swallow up the prayers. And he doesn't want to let you pray. And that's when you don't want to pray, but you do want to pray. But you don't, but you do. And you're in this tug of war to daven. Just to say, God, help me. I can't pray. That's one of the highest prayers, by the way. That's the beginning of this type of prayer. God, I can't pray. Help me pray. God, I don't want to pray. God, I'm tired of prayer. That's your truth. That's what you got to tell him. But you got to be fierce about it. Do I seem fierce? Ay, ay, ay. It happens, folks. But that's the Yetzer Hara, right back of the neck, and he's like swallowing up that power, and he's not, but you're trying to force it out of him. And all you got to do is just start. If you start in the right direction, you're going to get help. And all of a sudden it's going to flow, and all of a sudden the prayer is going to come to you on its own. And that's when you become a Baal Koach, a master of power. Because you took that stuff, that holiness, those sparks, that desire for God, and you took it away from the Yetzer Hara. You said, no, I'm not going to desire those fallen things. I'm going to take that power and that desire and turn it back to God. And when you do, he vomits. And it comes out in terms of new prayer, new power, renewal, desire, all the things we want. This is no joke. And people that say, well, it's not for me. No, it's too hard. How can I do that? They're just really, It's like standing in line, but not really wanting to get to the head of the line. I want to be a holy Jew. I want to be a good Jew. I want to be a person who accesses real prayer. So you get in line. But it's that I want to be has to be very strong. It can't be just I want to be because it's good. I know it's good. My rabbi said it's good. The school said it's good. I read a story about Moses praying and it inspired me. But I didn't realize it was going to be hard. Well, that but, I think for me, I identify it with, it's kind of like that side of laziness, that side of the spoiled American, When you grow up in Israel and you grow up with war and you grow up with terrorists all around you all the time, you can't afford the laziness in holiness. When you grow up in, the suburbs and everything is sababa, and you get everything when you want it pretty much. we learn to get spoiled. We can't help it. It's just the way it is. That's really part of exile, by the way. That's why the rabbis say there's two types of exile. The exile of Egypt, where they inflict us with suffering, and the exile of Babylon, where they inflict us with luxury. And if you don't think luxury is an infliction, try to pray this type of prayer. That power prayer, that prayer of desire that's not even there. Because that's really what is needed for ourselves and for our families and for our community, for the Jewish people at large, because the Jewish people are in a luxury exile, my friends. It's happening all over. Anywhere where things are all just, like I expect them to be, without the obstacles. That's part of the way why little things become difficult in Eretz Israel. God wants it that way. Because if the little things were easy, we just think, oh, we're in the cruise mode. We're in the zone. But it's not true. It's an illusion. So we get to Eretz Israel, you get off the plane, it's like amazing. And after a few months, you're like, whoa, where am I? Everything's harder here. But that hardness is really an aspect of the real work. It's like the difference between the minor leagues and the major leagues in baseball. You're a good player, you're in the minor leagues. But you want to make the show, you want to make the big time, it's going to be hard. Otherwise, it's not the big time. Eretz Israel is really the big time. It's the major leagues. Because we are transforming the world from here, not from out there. Now, from out there in the exile, I've been there a few times, It's a big transformation. If you can pray like this in the Chutz La'aretz, then you're on target. You're on the team. It's very hard to pray. Everybody I know comes back from America complaining. I couldn't go to shul. I couldn't daven. I couldn't learn. I didn't want to. Because the psychic atmosphere is cramping down. It's this depression cloud. But here in Israel, God takes that away, but he expects, we have to do something for it. And this is where it's happening, right here. Right in the back of your throat, where you don't want to pray. All your power is locked up. We don't scream out. Oy, it's a lot of work. I feel it now. Got to go out and scream, folks. See you later. Not yet. I don't want to say goodbye so fast. Because there's a lot more secrets the Rebbe has on the way for us. All right. So he tells us this idea that we've just been learning about. But Tzavaro Yalin Oz. And this is a pasuk from I'm looking for the source backwards. Wow, my eyes are working slow. It must be Sunday. But Tzavaro Yalin Oz is from Eov. From Job. Now, Job knew about this kind of thing. Job knew it was to pray from his guts. Because, we know what happened to him. But it's listen to the verse. Bitzavaro, in his throat, Yalin, will sleep power, oz, boldness. But what's it doing in my throat? I need it in my hands. I need it in my voice, in my feet. Right? That's the power that's been trapped by the other side in this back of the throat, which the tzavar is another word for the oref, the back of the neck. And there's this power waiting there. Why do you think we all get stiff necks? The Zohar says the Yetzer Hara is coming in right there. That's his portal. That's his point of access. Everybody gets a stiff neck. Why are we called the stiff-necked people? Huh? Does that make sense? The stiff-necked people is because all our power is trapped here by the other side. Why is it always when people dominate another people, and you see those pictures of the poor Jews being carried off to exile in Babylon, their heads are bowed. Why do they always make you bow your head? Because that's the sign of submission. And the Jew says, no, I'm not going to bow my head. I'm going to lift my head to God. It's all happening right there at the back of the neck. And it works. I really hope that these words are entering your hearts, because it's coming from mine. Because I've been there, and I don't like it. I don't like the other side taking my prayer. I don't like the other side kidnapping my power. It's too hard to get the power in the first place. It is, of course, it's a gift of God, but still. But Sivaro Yalin Oz, in his the power is in the back of the neck over there. If anybody's ever been a wrestler, you know what I mean. Or when I played football, they have this machine where you exercise your neck. Well, that's because you're using your head for the wrong thing, right? Football is like a brain damaged sport. It's terrible. But, okay, when you're kids, you don't know that too well. Hi. And that's why you have these machines to exercise the back of the neck, because all this power is over there. It's a big muscle, comparatively speaking. It's got to hold up your head all day. This is the prayer that's sleeping in the back of the throat. It's trapped there. It's standing there in the place where the Beit Biliah is. It translates really as that. Literally, it's called the house of swallowing. You see how Hebrew is so exceptionally suggestive. The house of swallowing. Well, that's exactly back here where the food goes down your throat. Bechinat b'tzvaro yalin oz, bechinat tfilah, shehu bechinat mate oz. And now he goes to another whole level. This is nice. This mate oz is the staff of power. That's Moses' staff. Why did God give Moses that staff of power? Kabbalah says God's name was engraved in the wood. Now, don't go out and take a stick and engrave God's name in the wood, please. That's going to get you in trouble. If not with God, with your neighbors or your wife. We were camping once in Moharan, my daughters and my sons and my wife, and it's all very pleasant and sweet under the trees. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up out of the forest with a robe on and a big stick. And he starts telling everybody what to do. Clear out of my way. And this guy was had probably not taken his meds ever. But he was carrying this stick, and he had things engraved in the stick. And he was like, that's not the way it works. The way it works is you pray with O's, and then maybe God will give you a stick. But you don't go out and make one because you want to be Moses, which unfortunately I think this guy had a little Jerusalem syndrome as well. Oh well, that's what happens on this path. You meet all kinds. God should protect us from that, protect him. Because the person that takes that path, he's not really, he doesn't have the staff of Moses. He has a madness in his brain, called the staff of Moses. But it is an aspect of that power, that Mateos, the staff of Moses, was able to do miracles. Well, the staff wouldn't have done the miracles without Moses holding it and Aaron using it for him, etc. It's not so simple. V'omeret lo b'tzvaro, and that power is standing at the back of his neck, bechinat habiliyah shelo, which is of course connected with that place where the swallowing, where our speech is actually swallowed up. You can't talk, right? Vazahu muchrach liten akaot, and then it's necessary to heave up. Okay, I think you know what I mean by heaving up. The Sitra Achra has to vomit out that power, all the holiness that it's swallowed up. And what does he swallow up? Our mercy. Remember the last class we had on Thursday was called the bandits of prayer, or the bandits of mercy and the thieves of prayer. What is it doing? The other side wants to take away our mercy and take away our prayer. Then we're helpless. The Gemara says. All the power of Yaakov, which is all of us, all Jews, is in our mouth. It's in our prayer. Hayinu bala'av yiki ena. Right? And that's this other verse from Yov. Chayil, power. Bala, he's swallowed, and then he's got to vomit it back up. Not enough that the other side has got to give up and heave up that kedusha that he swallowed. Rather, afgam hu muchrach laki lotzi atzmut v'chiyut shelo mamash, because he's got to give up some of himself with it. And this is the secret that I wanted to get to today. That it's not that you're just taking back what the other side stole from you, those sparks of holiness and desire. He's going to give up himself. And this is exactly what we want to happen, and this is exactly why we have to go through it. Because when the Jew prays at this level, he's going to reduce the power of the other side and weaken him. And just like it says about Moses, that when Moses prayed and Joshua was down in the valley fighting Amalek, it says every time Moses lifted up his hands, the Jews were overcoming the Amalekites, which are alive and well today, trust me. And a lot of them sit in Tehran and a few of them in Berlin. Those Amalekites, those Hammonites. They swallow the prayer, and it's not enough. We're not here just to take back what they took from us. We're here to put an end to them, because they're oppressing the entire human race. And if you don't think so, check it out. Check out the Gemaras, check out the Midrash, check out the Zohar. I'm not coming off this because I have a political agenda. This is just the truth that's been handed down for thousands of years. Why do you think we learn these books, folks? Why do you think the Jews are so dedicated to their books? Because it's all prophetic about today. And we can take back the power that they stole from us and their power. And that's what we're here to do. Through this type of prayer. This prayer that it comes from so deep in the gut, there's nothing left. And you'll see transformations and miracles in your life if you can get there. So we're going to end there today because it's so important. And I want to bless everyone with this power and the courage to go in there. The courage to face this level where I don't want to talk to God, and I don't want to pray, and I don't want to go to shul, and I don't want to do mitzvot, and I don't want to be bothered by God and Torah and those Orthodox Jews. They get in my face. No, there's a reason that we are the way we are, because we are at war with these people. And you see battleships on the horizon. I can see the Mediterranean from my back porch. And it's on a good day, you could see ships out there. On a clear day, you could see forever, right? Well, you can see the battleships on a clear day, and they're not coming here to do business. They're coming here because of what's happening in the world scene. And it's happening here because we are this. So if you're a Jew out there that doesn't really like this, you want to stay comfortable in Long Island, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. If I were you, I'd be you. If I were you, I'd be living your lifestyle. But I'd be questioning. Why is it all the time the world is focused on Israel? 7 billion people, and they're all worried about 6 million here. Because of this very point, that we are at a war between holiness and unholiness, and if we don't like the terms, okay, they're not PC enough for you, find your own terms, fine, but the emes is right here in the books, right here in Rebbe Nachman's Torah, that the other side is trying to swallow us up every chance it gets. And how does he do it? By swallowing up our prayer. And all we got to do is start by the prayer for prayer. God, help me pray. God, help me. I don't want to talk to you, but I have to. I'm desperate. And that desperation is the key to redemption. It's the key to redemption. That's when God heard the Jews in Egypt, and that's where he hears us in every generation. And if you're one of those people that says, well, where was God in the Holocaust? We're going to do some shirim on our Patreon page about the Holocaust, the Kabbalah of the Holocaust. It's not going to be right now, probably around Tisha B'Av. Because for me, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash that comes on Tisha B'Av, for me, it's the Holocaust. That's our Beit HaMikdash. Those poor 6 million Jews that died. They didn't die for no reason. They didn't die because they wanted luxury in the Warsaw Ghetto. But we're going to save those teachings for later, because everything in its time, as the Ben Ish Chai says, Ma tov davar be'ito. How good is a thing in its time? So the Jewish calendar is guiding us through the year and guiding us through these ups and downs. And right now we're on the 29th day of the Omer, and this is the time that the students of Rabbi Akiva were dying. There's a lot of opinions about who they were, and I suggest that you check them all out, because some interesting twistiness has come along in history, and Rabbi Beryl Wine has got a very interesting take on the students of Rabbi Akiva, who they were and why they happened, and why we're fasting, we're counting the Omer. We're in a state of slight mourning until Lag Bomer this week, Wednesday night, thank God, the Hilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So some big stuff coming, folks, and hopefully we're going to launch that Patreon page this week. I look forward to being with you again, and we'll learn more Torah, and we're going to take that power back, and we're going to show the world why we are who we are, and why they're part of us and we're part of them. God bless all of you, and take it to the mountain. God bless. Have a good day.